Today's date is Wednesday, November 11th, 2023. The Planning Commission consists of residents from each Salt Lake City district that are appointed in a manner providing balanced geographic, professional, neighborhood, and community interest representation. The Planning Commission reviews and acts on any changes to the city's general plans, small area plans, special studies, zoning ordinances, and zoning district maps. The Commission also reviews and acts on planned unit developments, conditional uses, and certain subdivisions. Our goal is to provide a welcoming and safe environment for everyone. We ask that those in attendance adhere to a few ground rules. 1, silence or turn off your cell phones. 2, respect the person speaking and do not interrupt or do things that could intimidate or deter others from exercising their right to be heard. Clapping, cheering, jeering, shouting, or other actions used to discourage people who have different opinions from participating will not be tolerated. People who attempt to diminish someone else's input may be removed from the room. 3, if you wish to speak, come to the microphone once the public hearing has been opened and state your name. Members of the public will have 2 minutes to comment. Your time cannot be combined with someone else's time. Everyone will get the same amount of time to speak so that we can ensure everyone is treated equally. If you are a representative of an officially recognized organization and the item you wish to speak on is within the boundaries of your organization, you will be given 5 minutes. If it is outside of your boundaries, you will be given 2 minutes. 4, if you have a handout that you want the commission to see, you need to leave copies because they become part of the legal record. 5, when commenting, speak clearly, keep your comments on topic and brief. 6, questions asked during a public hearing will not be answered during the public hearing. Rather, the commission may ask the applicant or staff to answer questions after the public hearing is closed, or ask city staff to follow up with you at a later time. Let's go ahead and move to the first item on our agenda. We have meeting minutes from both October 25th and also November 8th that we need to approve.
I move to approve the meeting minutes.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Berry and a second from Commissioner Bitton.
May we have just a moment for discussion? There are a couple of things on the October 25th minutes that I think might need to be addressed.
Okay.
The first comment is just sort of a general one, and I won't reference all of the instances, but there are some confusions between commissioner, the use of commissioner, and the commission, which I think should be corrected just so that everything is clear. And then I had a question on, sorry, my computer's being a little slow. So this is on page 9, at the very bottom of the page, reciting Commissioner Burrow's motion. And the number 2 item there says that consideration 2 is met because the existing zoning allows for enough density. And I'm not sure that made sense to me, given the recommendation was to forward a negative recommendation, or the motion was to forward a negative recommendation. I would expect that to say consideration 2 is not met. That is all.
I would like to add to this as well. The minutes for 10:25, I was actually not in attendance. And according to the minutes, it does says that I was here. So I just wanted to make sure for the record that I was not present. If we can add that to the friendly amendment, that will be great. Thank you.
Any other amendments to the minutes that anyone would like to make?
I can make these amendments before they're posted tomorrow.
Thank you. Commissioner Berry, do you accept those amendments?
I don't think they need to be friendly amendments. Is there, if staff can handle
Okay.
them?
Sounds
I'm not
good.
against it, but I procedurally don't believe they need to be actual amendments.
We
So
will
if
go.
staff has indicated that they can take care of them,
Okay,
then, or if you're satisfied, then.
sounds good.
I guess my question is, do we need to amend the motion that they're approved as will be amended by staff?
That would be my suggestion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I can do.
Okay,
So I will move to approve the minutes for both of those meetings per the recommended changes.
okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Berry and a second from Commissioner Bitton. We will go ahead and take a vote. If you were absent for one of both of the meetings, please note that on your vote. Commissioner Santos Rivera.
Yes, and I will abstain myself from the minutes on 10/25/2023 and approve the November 8.
Thank you. Commissioner Bitton.
Yes.
Commissioner Scheer.
Yes.
Commissioner Burrows. Your mic's off. I'll come back to you then. Commissioner Berry.
Yes.
Commissioner Tuttle.
Yes.
Commissioner Gale.
I will abstain from approving the minutes from the November 8th meeting due to the fact I was not in attendance, but will vote yes on the approval for the meeting minutes from October 25th.
Thank you.
Yay. I think that actually, in discussing whether I meant to say higher density transit oriented development will not align with the central community future land use map, are we saying to take out the not? I think.
No,
No.
it's number 2. Consideration 2 is met because
Okay. It should say is not met. Right? Is that
that's
you're
what I
suggesting?
said.
Right.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. Yes. So I'll vote yes.
Thank you. And the chair will also vote yes. So on each meeting, we have 7 yeses and 1 abstention. We will go ahead and move to the report of the chair. The chair has nothing to report, and we will go ahead and move on to the report of the director.
All right, thank you. As most of you are aware, we did have a planning commissioner resign from the commission. Commissioner Gant submitted a resignation yesterday. We already, because we have people who have applied to join the commission, we actually already have 2 people, I think, that we're going to forward, that the mayor's office is going to forward to the council for appointment. So hopefully that will be a short-lived vacancy. And one of those is a resident in City Council District 5, which currently doesn't have a planning commission from that district with that resignation. Second, just some updates on City Council actions. Next week, they have a couple of items on for decision, including 2 of them are really big. So one is the affordable housing incentives. They're going to vote on that next Tuesday, and also on the updated subdivision code. We anticipate that we'll be forwarding the community benefit ordinance on to them if not this week, early next week. So as you remember, this commission heard that at a couple meetings ago. And so we anticipate they'll pick that up in fairly short order sometime early 2024. And with that, I think that's all I had to update the commission on. Thank you.
Thank you. So at the end of next meeting, we will be selecting a new vice chair. So keep that in mind. We will go ahead and move on to our 10-minute open forum. If we have any commissioners who would like to discuss anything.
Well, I guess I'll do point of personal privilege here. I just want to say tonight's going to be Turner's last night in the Planning Commission. And I just wanted to say that it might have been a brief moment with us, but it was not unnoticed. Turner is such a important figure in our civil society and or fabric, that makes Salt Lake City such a beautiful place. He is a mentor to many professionals in the planning and architectural field, and he brought so many good perspectives to every issue. We might disagree in some other stuff, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for the service to this body, and I guess we'll see what you're gonna do from the other trenches in our city, and thank you so much for everything you have done. Very enthusiastic to see what the future holds for you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, one thing I forgot to add is that at the last two city council meetings ago now, they actually appointed somebody to replace Turner Bitten from District 2. And is Landon here? There he is.
Yeah, Landon, we look forward to work with you. We need fresh perspectives in our city, and I think you'll do a great job doing that. And you have tough footsteps to follow. I actually would like to, now moving to the open forum, to ask a question for staff. And I guess it's more like a procedural question. I wonder what is already in place to renew or redo the Avenues community plan? Because I believe it's like 40-some years old. Is there anything that we have coming up to do that? Is it the community council who enacts that? How does that work? Sorry.
No, that's fine. So in our city, a update to a community plan can be initiated really by two entities, right? It's the city council or the mayor. And so I know there's a lot of interest from the Avenues community in updating their plans, especially in light of a potential major institution leaving with the LDS Hospital campus. And I know the community's been reviewing that plan and doing some of the legwork, and we've talked to them about that and asked them to figure out what's important in the plan to keep, what would they like to see in the plan, but also keep in mind what long-term city needs are and the role that the Avenues neighborhood plays in achieving those needs and goals. And so generally, as we get closer to the budget season, that's when we establish priorities. And if it rises to the level that it's considered for funding, then that would move forward. But it typically requires a funding action because updating plans can have some cost, and it depends because the Avenues plan is so old. It pretty much needs to be redone completely. It's not just a simple update.
Oh, yeah.
So there'll probably be a budget need for that, and so that's where that would come from.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I look forward to see the allocation for this effort. Yeah, I guess that's my overarching question I had over the past couple of days. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm just wondering if there's any interest on the part of any of the other commissioners to possibly discuss some of the points that were brought up in Commissioner Gant's resignation letter. Not now, but there might be a time that would be more appropriate.
I think that's something we should coordinate with the director on.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to know what you have in mind, and if you just want to send us those specific topics you'd like to discuss, then we're happy to put that on. If it sounds like you want to do it now, that's the prerogative of the commission now.
I don't want to do it now because I think it just takes a little bit more time than we have
Yeah.
now, and there's other business that's has a priority. But I think that she raised some interesting points, and I'd like to get some of the other commissioners' perspective on those points.
Yeah, so I think the best way to move forward is to put together a list of those topics, and you can send it to me and include the chair, and then we'll put together something for an agenda for the rest of the commission to discuss.
Thanks. Well, I think we should go ahead and move on to the regular agenda. Our first item is conditional use for a bar establishment at 1533 South, 1100 East. Case number PLN PCM 2023-00396, and our planner is Riley Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Give me just one moment to pull up my presentation. Hold on, I'm waiting on a password. The request before you tonight is for conditional use approval of a bar at 1533 South, 1100 East. Here is an aerial image of the property, along with an image of what the site currently looks like. There is an existing building at the property, and it is located in the RB Residential Business Zone. And staff is recommending approval of the request with one condition. Like I said before, the site is existing with a building that takes up most of the site area. The building is going to be remodeled to include a tap room, a seating area, a wine bar, and it will have about 90 total seats. There is no on-site parking, and the proposed hours of operation are 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. daily. A bar is listed as a conditional use in the residential business district and is subject to the standards of approval that are found in City Code 21A54, which are the standards for conditional use approval. The conditional use process examines a proposal for compatibility, whether the location is appropriate, configuration, and any potential impacts of the request. There are specific standards listed in this chapter that are used to determine potential detrimental impacts from a conditional use. And the proposal is also subject to the approval standards of the RB zone and any other applicable zoning standards. The project site is within the Central Community Master Plan area, and the future land use map for the site is low residential mixed use, which is reflected by the RB zoning designation, which continues along 1100 East. This corridor has a mix of uses which the proposed use will add to. All bars must meet the standards for alcohol-related establishments, which includes requiring the applicant to submit a security and operations plan, which is required to be recorded by the City Recorder's Office prior to issuing any building permits or business licenses for the use. The security and operation plan addresses noise, garbage, complaint management, and various other issues that may be generated by the use. This plan is used to mitigate any potential negative impacts and that may affect the neighboring properties and increase the compatibility with the surrounding area. Many of the items in this plan address comments that we have received from the public during the review process, which during the review process, staff received 36 total public comments. 26 were in favor and 10 were opposed. 4 of these comments were received after the publication of the staff report and are in the Planning Commission's Dropbox for review. The opposing comments generally detailed concerns with the proposal's compatibility with the existing neighborhood, parking, traffic, littering, crime, noise, and air quality. The concerns that relate to the standards of approval are addressed in the staff report, and many of them, like I said before, are also addressed in the security and operations plan. One of those items addresses any issues that may arise from noise, and any noise that is generated at the bar will be limited to the standards that are set by the county health department, and any live entertainment or noise generating activities will be required to take place completely inside the building. This plan also includes details on when and how often trash will be collected, if there is any littering on the premises, which this will happen daily, and trash will be collected from the site at least once weekly. As you can see on the screen, the nearest residence to the use is located to the east on the other side of a public alley. Although the site is separated from the nearest residence by this alley, the applicant is proposing a masonry wall and landscaping along the eastern property line to screen the dumpster area and to provide buffering between the use and the nearby residence. Additionally, there will be no doors, windows, or other openings on the eastern facade of the building which faces the nearest residence. Like I said before, the proposed hours of the operation are 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. daily, and the proposed site is located along a corridor with other commercial uses with similar hours of operation, including a 7-Eleven that is about 2 blocks away, which is open 24 hours a day. There is no vehicular access or parking areas on site. Due to the configuration of the existing building, it's not possible for the applicant to provide on-site parking. For changes in use for buildings built prior to 1944, the zoning regulations don't require any additional parking to be provided beyond what is existing. The building was built in 1910, so no additional off-street parking is required in conjunction with the proposed use. There is publicly available parking along 1100 East and Kensington Avenue, and its location within an existing neighborhood and mixed-use area will access a customer base that are more likely to travel to the bar by foot or by bicycle because of their proximity. Out of the 26 public comments that we received via email that were in favor of the proposal, 17 mentioned they were pleased about the possibility of walking, biking, or taking transit. Staff is recommending one condition. As of now, there is limited existing lighting at the site, and the applicant has indicated they plan to provide additional lighting for safety at building entrances and near the dumpster area. Staff is proposing that final details of the new lighting will be delegated to staff review to verify compliance with the conditional use standards, which include limiting intrusion onto neighboring properties. The proposed condition also includes delegating review of the landscaping near the dumpster area to staff. This is because some of the landscaping in this area will need to be modified to meet the standards for site distance triangles. And the bushes that you can see on the image on the screen close to the dumpster area will need to be substituted with another plant because these bushes could exceed the maximum height allowed by city code standards for hedges. With that condition, staff is recommending approval of the proposal.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and have the applicant come up and give any presentation that you have. Okay. Yeah, go ahead and have a seat and state your name for the record.
Okay, my name's Ian Kaplan. I'm the architect and applicant on this conditional use proposal, and I have with me Cody Chamberlain, who is the property owner. So like I said, I don't have a presentation to give. I think Riley did a fantastic job of summarizing the kind of urban planning perspective of the conditional use process and all the application materials that we had to submit through that. So really what I just want to talk about tonight is just some concepts around what a bar provides for a neighborhood, and also the process by which we went through in selecting this site as a potential bar location. So first of all, thank you guys. I know that this is a volunteer position for you, and you spend your evenings here by your own good graces, so thank you for your time and dedication to our city. Also, thank you to Riley for all the work that she's done on this and preparing all the application materials, and thank you to my partner here, Cody, who's been actively working in this neighborhood to really try to bring new life into the 11th Street corridor and bring new local businesses to reinvigorate what was once a really thriving commercial street in our neighborhood. I'd also like to thank the East Liberty Park Community Organization for their due diligence in this and working with the community, and also working with us as we try to work with the community to potentially mitigate within reason any detrimental effects that this may have on the immediate neighbors. So I've been working actively, and I've been involved on the 11th Street corridor, both as an architect, a developer, and a property owner. I own property about 2 blocks north of this proposal, directly on 11th. So I feel well suited to be taking this on. The reason why I'm actually actively working in this neighborhood is because it's one of those few rare neighborhoods in Salt Lake City that has the potential to be a walkable, urban, safe neighborhood. It has a lot of community businesses on it. It's a main thoroughfare between 9th and 9th and the 15th and 15th and even Sugar House regions. It's kind of that middle zone between these really popular districts, which kind of makes it feel like a little bit of maybe a dead man's zone at times, as we've started to see the turnover of business establishments in the neighborhood. Commercial corridors like 11th, from an urban planning perspective, in my opinion, they struggle when they don't meet the intent of the code. So the RB code is supposed to have residences and businesses, and the 11th Street corridor has mostly become businesses. And when you look at it from a safety perspective, active corridors that contain commercial businesses make for safer neighborhoods. But when they're not activated, particularly at night, I think that they make for a breeding ground for crime. Some of the pillars of American urbanism, both in eyes on the street and mixed-use development, are not met by this corridor as it currently stands. And at night, it becomes very quiet, very vacant. The business owners are not there. The parking lots are empty. The 7-Eleven is the only activated business on the block, which doesn't necessarily attract the best patrons into the neighborhood, unfortunately. So as the city continues to grow around us, as the development pressure continues to affect 11th East, it's really important that we start to activate that street in the evening hours, either by bars or restaurants or any other activity that can bring eyes on the street and keep people moving through those streets, either in transit to other districts where there are other nighttime activities that they can move, or to go back home where they feel safe walking in the neighborhood. And that is the kind of intent of having a neighborhood bar, is to provide a place where people can walk. This is not a massive establishment. We're not trying to invite all the frats from University of Utah to come party there. It's really, the intention is to be a neighborhood bar where people can come and gather. So one of the points of the neighborhood bar that I'd like to make is that it's one of the few remaining establishments that we have left in our city where it's a neutral ground. You know, it's a place where, in an environment that thrives on political difference and socioeconomic difference and religious differences, the bar actually creates a place that, like I said, is neutral. It's a place that's neither work, it's neither home. It's a place where you meet your friends and your family for a good conversation and hopefully some laughter. It's a place where opportunity exists for us to get to know our neighbors and keep pulse on what's happening in our neighborhood. It's a social connector that can help weave the fabric of healthy neighborhoods through the conversation that it facilitates and the connections that are made underneath its roof. I want to emphasize it is not just a place for people to go get drunk. It's not. The question then becomes, is a bar right for this location specifically? We believe it is, and according to the amount of public support that we've received and private support that we've received, people want this. And there are some people that do not, which is totally acceptable. Everybody's entitled to an opinion, and we are trying to work as best as we can and as diligently as we can to make sure that any negative effects that may come from an establishment like this can be mitigated within reason. The planning department has prepared a really thorough and robust presentation that shows why this meets the conditions of the conditional use. And we are also bound by city and local codes through the DABC and state law as to what would establish a environment for a neighborhood establishment like this, and we meet all of the we meet all of the requirements that are set upon us by those codes. So I hope that this establishment can move forward. I hope that it can serve this community as an anchor point for urban renewal and further reactivation of that 11th Street corridor. So thank you again for your time this evening, and I'll pass the mic to Cody here.
Yeah, thank you, Ian, and thank you, everybody else. I'm a little under the weather, so Ian kind of took the bulk of the information there for me. But my name's Cody Chamberlain, born and raised in Salt Lake, actively involved in real estate in the community. I own a handful of properties on 11th and in the neighborhood, so I've, over the last 5-6 years, I've actively been involved in trying to create nice, safe properties in the neighborhood. And I have had a vision for, between Sugar House and 9th and 9th, and I think this space fits that vision. One of my buildings has a local coffee shop that just moved in. I've got a real estate office coming in, and a bunch of residential properties along that corridor as well. And I think creating a demographic and the ability for people to mix between residential and commercial, having coffee shops, bars, businesses like this is very crucial for this corridor. I see it being something, not on the scale of 9th and 9th or 15th and 15th, but something similar. And I think over the next couple of years, I think that direction is going to happen. I last month sat in front of the community. I took questions and concerns, and I'm not the type of person that just wants to bulldoze people's opinions and feelings. I understand this is a sensitive situation for the neighborhood, and I have taken those considerations in, and I want to adapt our plan to apply those issues that we have. One of them being smoking and air quality on the premises. We would love to have a no smoking establishment. I think that anybody can agree that that's a good way to promote the neighborhood being healthy. Hours of operation, there was a lot of concern about being open too late, and I think closing down earlier than midnight is something we definitely will consider. We're not trying to create Sugar House Pub. We're not trying to create, Piper Down on State. We're trying to create something similar to the Wine and Work Casat space in the 15th. Somewhere people can come after 2 o'clock and work and hang out and not be at a coffee shop. People don't want to drink coffee after 3 p.m. and have a place that have beer and wine, great Wi-Fi, and you can come have meetings, hang out. That's really the direction we want this to go. We don't want to have a party space, more of a neighborhood gathering place, like I said. So I appreciate everybody, and again, I'm open to continue to take comments and address people's concerns personally as the owner and hopefully the operator of the space. So.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff or the applicant before we open public comment?
I have just a couple. The first one is that some of the public comment we've received via email or other means mentions that there is a daycare center next door to the property. Can you verify for me if that's correct? Is it immediately adjacent to the property?
I can't remember if it's immediately adjacent or a few doors down. Do you know, Cody?
I'm not sure. I know there is a few different daycares, but I don't believe they're within the boundaries. I think we verified that through pre-submittal.
The daycares don't.
The daycares don't qualify.
They don't qualify under the DABC regulations as schools, and so they don't. Okay. They're not regulated the same way.
Yeah, I know there is a Montessori school further down near 13th, and then the other, gosh, I can't remember what it is, kindergarten, a little further down. But yeah, I don't think there's anything within the.
We can neither confirm nor deny that statement.
Okay. And then just a couple of other questions. I want to be sure we're clear on the no smoking nature of this, because in the security plan, as well as in the applicant's narrative, it mentions identifying a smoking area outside, and those just seem inconsistent.
Yeah.
So I think that should be addressed.
Yeah, so before I went to the community meeting a month ago, that was definitely something we had addressed on the plan because we wanted to meet all the guidelines we needed to. After taking feedback from the neighbors, understanding their concerns, we've discussed and we hope we can have a no smoking establishment deter people from gathering in one area, creating an air quality issue. So I apologize that wasn't updated I don't think in time
Okay.
for what you saw, but that came from me taking public feedback and trying to incorporate it into our site plan.
Okay.
I have some additional comments to add to that. So there are state requirements for where a smoking area can be designated on site, and it needs to be at least 25 feet from an entrance. So since the building takes up most of the site, there's no area on the site that could be used as the smoking area. And so in the most recent set of plans, I had the applicant update them. Those should be in the staff report to remove any reference to a designated smoking area. And there's some details on that in the security and operations plan, and it was also removed from the site plan and landscape plan.
Okay, great. I just wanted to confirm that. And then the last comment I have, we're not in charge of approving your security plan or anything, but there were multiple uses of, for example, the staff or the manager should, blah, blah, blah. And I would just say consider changing those to a will or a shall or a must or a may, just to be clear about what is required.
Yeah, and I created that personally, and when we actually, if we get there, we will sit down with whoever's going to help operate the space and make sure that's ironclad before we.
Great.
Thank you for that feedback.
I have a question. You have a lot of windows in this building, and I'm wondering if they're going to be, are we going to be able to see into the bar, or how do you plan to treat that on the inside and the outside?
Yeah, so there are no east-facing windows. There were some original south-facing windows, but we're going to cover those up. So we have windows facing west and south, north and west. But yeah, right now I've kind of ordered the windows up. I've got my glass order ready to go, but I haven't actually placed it. So I'd love feedback if a mirrored glass is something people would prefer. We're happy to entertain where you can or cannot see in. So a mirrored glass or a smoked glass.
So this is not something you've landed on one way or the other?
No,
at this
I
point?
haven't yet, no. So
Okay.
I'm open to, community feedback on what they'd like to see.
Okay. Thank you. And I have another question. Is you're keeping the steps as they are right now?
To be honest, that's why I was drawn to this building, is those circular steps in the front. I've driven past this building since I was 16 and got a driver's license and can cruise around the city. And the reason I walked into this building and, met with the owners originally, funny enough, is those steps. So they are not going anywhere.
Right.
Yeah. Hope everybody's okay with that.
The other question I have is, in terms of, do you have any sense from any marketing plan that you have of what percentage of people would be walking from the neighborhood?
I don't have that information right now, but we'd be hopeful that based on the location and the density of residential in the neighborhood, that it would be majority of the.
Do you have any idea of how many housing units are within a half a mile of your bar establishment?
I don't have that data in front of me, but it's something we definitely will dig into further as we get down the line here. If we get things.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question for you. One of the kind of recurring themes of opposition was around parking.
Right.
And given that you're going to be in the center of a neighborhood, I'm wondering if you've built in bicycle parking, any kind of non-vehicle parking into your site plans.
We haven't yet, but that's something I'm definitely entertaining on this building and another one of my buildings down the road. I'd love to have a local artist create some sort of art installation that people could, hook bikes to, hook scooters to. It is a bar. I don't think you should drive to a bar. I think everybody should ride share. So I'd love to figure out a way to offer some sort of voucher or ride share pickup location to help promote that. Walkability, public transportation, bus route. Kensington is changed, as you guys know, to be more of a biking, walking thoroughfare through the neighborhood. So we want to try and push that, marketing-wise, is that's how you get to the establishment. And, people will know that there's not great parking, and they just hopefully won't drive because they know it's, I go places downtown Salt Lake, and if I can't find parking, I figure out a way to get there without driving. So we would hope that, patrons do the same thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I do have a question about the parking situation. And maybe you can help me with that. Is it the Ringenstone Avenue, the one that has street parking, or is it the 1100 East?
They both have on-street
They
parking.
both have on-site. Okay, perfect. Are you, and then this is again, question for the planner, for the applicant, excuse me. Are you planning on having this door facing 1100 East, or is there another door that faces Kingston Avenue?
There are two doors of the establishment as required by code. The door located on the west face facing 1100 East is kind of a primary visual entrance, but the door that is actually on the corner of the building on the north face facing Kensington, it's all the way on the east side of the building, kind of snug up against the end of the building there. That is our ADA entrance and also a required exit by code. There are two doors total.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
As somebody who lived near a bar in another town, and it was a town bar, I know that most of the time everything was fine, but sometimes things would get a little raucous inside the bar, and that would happen on trivia night or dart ball night or an engagement party was going on. Is there any noise mitigation planned to make sure that noise doesn't spill out of the bar into the neighborhood at an
we actually
appropriate time?
specifically chose, we had originally in the plan had some kind of garage doors on the north face that would open and kind of connect the bar to the street in the more pleasurable seasons. But we specifically removed those and no longer have operable windows or doors so that any noise that is within the bar will hopefully stay within the bar. It's an old masonry building. It has triple wide walls on it. So it already has a pretty robust sound mitigation in place because of the brick construction. But on the interior, there will be other sound mitigation measures in terms of the ceiling applications and treatments, like acoustical wall treatments. We want it to be a quiet space. We don't want it to be a very loud, noisy environment. Like Cody was saying, the Vision is really a place that people can go and hang out. It's not so much a rowdy bar. So we'll be working architecturally on the interiors to make sure that there are good acoustical treatments in place so that it not only makes for a calm environment inside the bar, what we're looking for, but also will hopefully help from any subsequent noise spilling out on the street.
Well, looks like we've completed all of our questions. Let's go ahead and open up the public hearing. We have a card here from Christina Robb, the East Liberty Park Chair. Go ahead and state your name for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Hi again. My name is Christina Robb. I serve as the chair of the East Liberty Park Community Organization, otherwise known as ELPCO. I wanted to keep this very simple, and I wanted to be clear that this was not simple. But we, as an organization, have been mitigating issues on 1100 East since construction started in August. So we can confirm with all the other departments in Salt Lake City the tremendous amount of time that myself and our board have been spending on that street, getting to know neighbors and residents in the area. So the first thing I want to tell you about is that when it first came out, we were happy to do a walkthrough with Cody. Our board did a preliminary walkthrough, and right off the bat, we were able to start mitigating some of the issues that we knew would be concerning to the neighborhood. It has been a really interesting thing working with this particular development group, because we have never actually worked with a developer that took every single thing we brought to the table into consideration. So given that that is how they wanted to proceed, East Liberty Park was trying to do everything to engage our community in a way that didn't actually result in slander against me personally for supporting something that might be related to alcohol, or something that was more political related to the previous 5 years of construction on the street and the traffic calming issues in the area. So we were really struggling to separate out the issues related to the actual conditional use permit and what we were seeing being really a result of previous decisions made, including the Kensington Byway. So that said, we were able to do a lot of education in the community. It was really exciting. We have to thank Building Salt Lake for actually publishing something that helped us do political engagement, that made it appear like we had way more power in this decision than we actually do. Because then we got our community engaged in a way that they came to us with actual feedback about what they needed to be mitigated in this area. And at our meeting, there was some hard feelings. People were upset. We explained in detail. We educated people through email, the role that the community council plays in a conditional use, in that if it meets all the requirements, we have no legal ability to oppose it. But we felt very successful because our community told us what they thought. We had a huge outpouring of support. Over 100 people who gave us feedback on how exciting this was. We looked at where these people came from in our neighborhood and realized that they weren't actually the people who were going to bear the brunt of the bar. So we did not focus on those individuals, but there was a considerable amount of folks who were interested in having the 1100 South Corridor be a place where they can walk, commute, get a drink, buy food, etc. But we did really want to educate our community that this is going to develop. Whether we like it or not, it's going to develop. So we should come together and we should work together in order to try and create a corridor that works. A lot of people are not going to be happy, but we're really proud of the comments that our residents brought, that they have brought to you. We're not going to go over those because they provided really good detailed comments. East Liberty Park wants to be clear. I'm going to read something that says, a conditional use shall be approved if reasonable conditions are proposed or can be imposed to mitigate any reasonably anticipated detrimental effects of the proposed use, right? Thus, we decided to not make a formal recommendation one way or the other, but I will state that the individual members of East Liberty Park who reside in this area are excited to see this proposal. Mostly, we're excited to work with people in our community who will take the time to speak to one another over things that are as difficult as alcohol. We are proud to be a community council because it was hard. It's going to be hard for people in that, in the 1100 South Corridor to accept the growth that is coming our way. A lot of the land has already been purchased and is slated for development. So 3 cheers for the residents of East Liberty Park.
Thank you. Mark Johnson, go ahead and step up to the podium, state your name for the record, and you'll have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. My name is Mark Johnson, and is it Riley, right? Can you show your pictures again? Specifically the one of the alleyway at the back end. I am the house that's like 30 yards from the bar, so I have a very strong interest in what's happening. My concerns mostly are around parking, noise, and smoking. Smoking is tricky because I understand there may not be a designated smoking area. You can't stop people from smoking outside of the building. One of the things I had asked, if you see the kind of the side wall of that building, that house there, that is my house, and my bedroom window is the closest thing in my house to the back of that building, to that white door, which is the second door that was mentioned. I was hoping to propose that that be an exit only. I realize there's an ADA concern. I don't know if there can be a buzzer or something. If it's in and out traffic, I feel like people will step out, congregate right there by the alleyway, smoke. You can't stop them, you know, that's impossible. And then it's right by my bedroom. So that is probably my biggest concern. Same with the noise of people that step out to congregate and talk. Parking, that will be discussed by plenty. It's been removed by all the recent construction, which taken about half the parking on 11th and partially on Kensington. So that is a concern. But to me, the biggest one is congregating at the back end of the bar there. I don't love the idea of the bright lights shining in my bedroom window. Personally, I prefer that not be that way, just a smaller light in that area. But yeah, I think that is my biggest concern. I don't know how, I don't know what the process is other than making a comment, how to ask for a formal condition.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Shelley Tusher, go ahead and step up to the mic and you'll have 2 minutes.
Come down.
First of all, we'd like to request that you delay your decision until the applicant can better address the parking issue. We understand that he's been encouraged to work with the neighboring businesses to see if there's some
Excuse
sort
me,
of...
ma'am? Can you speak closer to the microphone?
Yes, I can. To see if there's some sort of shared parking arrangement that can be made. The second is we request that the Planning Commission impose a condition that food trucks may not park on Kensington Avenue. It's part of his plan to bring in a food truck and park it on Kensington Avenue, which will bring noise from generators and additional traffic, which will add to the parking woes on Kensington, which already doesn't have a lot of parking. So that's a condition we would request that you would impose. The second condition we would request that you would impose would be that the bar must close at 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and at midnight on Friday and Saturday. State law allows him to close at 1 or 2 p.m., a.m., excuse me. And that's just not going to work in a residential neighborhood like surrounds the bar. We understand that he's proposing to close at midnight, but that's not a requirement unless you make it one. And so we would request a condition that he close at 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and at midnight on Friday and Saturday nights. Third condition is we request that the back door be an emergency exit only and ADA access be provided in some other manner, perhaps a buzzer, as Mark said, or something like that, because otherwise people will go in and out of it and will smoke and talk and bother the neighbors. So anyway, I don't know how long 2 minutes is or how close I am to it.
You're good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Brian Winters, you're next. Step up to the microphone and you'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you. See, I will first say that I am opposed to this location becoming a bar. I request that you deny permission to continue. Let me say, the 10 people who are opposed to it are probably the people who live within 300 feet. A lot more people live further away, and the 26 who are for it, they probably live 800 feet away. I'd be for it if I lived 800 feet away too, but I live within 300 feet. I have a swamp cooler, and I already get enough secondhand cigarette smoke coming in through my swamp cooler from the nearby bus stop.
Sir, can you please speak closer to the microphone?
Oh, okay. You guys having trouble hearing me? So, yeah, there's enough secondhand tobacco smoke coming in through my swamp cooler already. Like I said, the people who are for it probably live 800 feet away. I think you should give more weight to the opinions of the people who live 100 and 300 and practically 20 feet away from it. I live within 300 feet. I'm on Emerson. What's going to happen is there's going to be a congregation of people smoking, and even if it's a non-smoking establishment, they're going to congregate, just like they do at Sugar House Pub. They'll be out there congregating, smoking. Then the panhandlers come out, hey, you can have a cigarette. Then the panhandlers are going to be coming around asking for money. A food truck's going to attract panhandling just the same way. There will be a crowd of these, energetic 20-something-year-olds out there smoking all the time. Noon until 12 p.m. or maybe even 1 a.m. And they're going to be smoking in the related parking areas, which is going to be the Kensington building, which is my backyard. They're going to be parking in that Kensington building. And the owner's probably already buddies with that owner, and they probably got they're probably related somehow, and they're aware that they're going to be parking in the Kensington building, just west of it, in my backyard, and they're going to be smoking in that parking lot. And I'm completely opposed to this. Like I said, even if it's a non-smoking bar, that there's going to be a congregation of smoking, and I think a better use of the space would be yoga studios, some kind of healthy thing, a bicycle, an e-bicycle shop. And furthermore, I would say that it is too close to the St. John's Community Childhood Development Center, which is essentially a school. It's 500 feet away. Across from that is a Montessori school also.
Thank you. That's 2 minutes. Cody Chamberlain. Yeah. Well, yeah. Craig Bushman is next. State your name and you'll have 2 minutes.
My name is Craig Bushman, and for transparency, I was recently appointed to the Salt Lake City Transportation Advisory Board. I'm speaking in a personal capacity today, nothing to do with the Transportation Board, just wanted to make that clear. I'm asking you, or urging you to support the conditional use permit. I just want to talk briefly about the type of community we want to have here in Salt Lake City, one that's focused on community-centered, livable, walkable sort of organizations. The applicants mentioned briefly the different types of places, and this notion is there are 3 types of places typically. Your first place is work and school. Second place is affinity organizations, churches, Elks Lodges, and so forth, where people have a common interest together. And then you have third places, libraries, bars, and the like, where people of different generations, different political beliefs, different races, religions can get together and talk and actually meet one another so we can learn to agree or even learn to disagree, but to disagree from a place of trust rather than from suspicion. And it's really important to have these types of places in a community because it creates a center, a nexus. And I think it'd be wonderful to meet my neighbors. I live on 8th East in Logan. Meet my neighbors that live across on 11th and get to know them in a way that I normally wouldn't otherwise. And just as a real quick, real-life example here, it's recently in Helper, Utah, the Regis Bar, we met a young software programmer that moved there, fast internet, low cost of housing, in his 20s. He was hanging out at that bar with retired power plant workers from Helper and retired coal miners, and also current coal miners and contractors that work with coal mines. And what is the likelihood that a young man and an older man or woman of different generations just hanging out and just being friends? And this is the kind of place that would support those kind of relationships. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to give public comment? The card may have been misplaced. Go ahead and step up to the mic and state your name for the record, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Sound like a recording. I'll put the mic down here. I'm Claudia Johnson. I live on Kensington. My parents lived on Kensington. My siblings lived on Kensington. We had 2 houses on Kensington. I tore down a house on Kensington. I built a new house on Kensington. My mother died on Kensington. I have been a longtime resident of Kensington Avenue. I understand this is a business, and we've known Shingletons forever. And then it became a Pfaff store, and everybody said, that's a machine shop. That's your sewing machine store. That's the street you live on. We have complained with the city about the traffic down on Kensington. It is going down crazy. They put a crosswalk. 12th East became a walkway, McClellan Trail. And people were afraid to walk there because the traffic was so busy. So they narrowed the street. And now we have a bar that's going to build right there, which they have taken up any possible parking right there by that bar because they have put these big, awesome curbs to slow down traffic. It doesn't slow them down. They just wait and then speed up to get up there before the next person does. 11th East does not have parking because that's now a bike trail. It's not a parking spot. And if it is, the bikes have this narrow area to be able to ride a bike on. So this is a family community. It's not a business community. It's a family area. People want to be together as family. And I appreciate the fact that they want to make a place to hang out. But hey, I couldn't get a straight answer from these guys. What are you going to do with this place? What's happening? What do you think it should be? Well, what are you going to do? Well, I don't know. What do you think? Never could get a straight answer. Can we get straight answers now? Good question. So I'm concerned that this is taking away from the community and not making it a gathering place. It's only making it a gathering place for adults, the adults that drink, not the adults that just want to sit and visit and mingle, maybe eat, maybe whatever. I know you're going to tell me it's 2 minutes up.
Yes.
I'm going to continue on. I just really want you to consider if you lived on this street and you had families and you knew that kids are walking by that to go to school because they've changed new school areas and they're going to have to walk to Emerson from farther distances.
I'm
So
sorry,
keep-
ma'am, that's 2 minutes.
Keep that in mind when you're voting, is the fact it's a community of families.
Thank you. And would anyone else like to give public comment? We'll have Cody and the other applicant go ahead and come back to the table because we may have further questions for you. And we'll go ahead and close the public comment and bring it back to the commission for further discussion.
Chair?
Mr. Chair, normally you give the applicant an opportunity to respond to any comments.
Yes, go ahead and respond to the questions that were posed.
For sure. Yeah, thank you guys for bringing more questions to the table. I want to just kind of go through quickly a couple of them here, or all of them actually, I think. The back door on the property, we want to have that be an emergency exit with alarm system. We should have updated the plans to show that, and I think our security and safety plan also mentions that we'll have one point of entry, which is the front of the building, and that back door is emergency exit and ADA access only. So we don't want people coming and going out of that back space. We want to be able to monitor, and I'm not positive, but I think that DBAC requires a single point of entry for the square footage too. But I wanted to address that. Food trucks. That at one point, I guess that was just a cool dream that I had that got on a set of plans. We have removed that. We know that that's not going to be something we can do. So the most recent plan has that removed. We don't plan on having food trucks on Kensington. The closing time, I know midnight is tough for people. I love the idea of Monday through Thursday, 10 p.m., maybe even 9 p.m., depending on how busy it is. The weekend, maybe later, but I'm all for that idea. I think that's great. Nothing good happens after midnight, right? I have kids. I'm usually in bed by then. The 3-month-old's not allowing me to sleep. But, I'm not related to anybody who owns property with parking or alleyway behind, so I haven't been in conversations with any of the buildings about shared parking agreements, but I'd love to open that to any neighbors that would love to entertain maybe allowing us to lease space. I know the building just north of this one has a pretty good sized parking lot. They close around 5 p.m., so if there was a way I could help incentivize and lease space from them, that would be awesome. I'd help promote another business, help them generate some income. I think that was about it. Yeah, so I'm sorry if, I don't think I ever spoke with you about what we were trying to do at the property. I apologize if someone had told you something different, but anyways, I'm trying to be straightforward. I apologize.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion, but can I ask a clarifying question for staff real quick? Would it be possible to add that rear entrance and exit as one of the things that would require staff approval?
Yes, but I'm not sure if there's going to be building code issues with that.
It's also part of the liquor laws of the state, too.
Okay.
Just one, you have, the exiting and the entrances are coded through the state liquor
Yeah,
license.
Commissioner Benton, I actually have a point I'd like to make before you do a motion, if that's all right. So we all know state law directs us on conditional uses. If the standards are met, we are directed by state law that we have to approve them. Our role then becomes in trying to mitigate those detrimental impacts. So we've heard a lot of from the community and proposed mitigations, which you seem to be doing. One of the things that came up tonight, though, from the resident at 1116 is lighting. So we've delegated you've delegated it and as a condition back to staff. But I think it might be, I'd like to hear from you, Riley, then how you would work with the neighbor, because there are different ways you can deal with lighting so that it's not shining into his bedroom, which I think is a very valid concern. How will you go about trying to work with that neighbor and the applicant, if it's approved, to make sure that that's satisfactory to the neighbor, and also then providing enough lighting for security?
So there are already standards listed in the conditional use section of code that requires that any lighting that is provided on site does not intrude onto neighboring properties. So that's what I would be reviewing with the updated plans from the applicant in regards to lighting. So I hope, since it wouldn't be intruding onto the neighboring property, that would address their concerns.
Yeah, I know that's in the standards, but I've seen many instances where it does intrude because there wasn't enough attention paid to it. But I firmly believe that you will pay attention to it and work with that neighbor specifically, if this is approved, to ensure that it's not something that's intrusive, because those windows are right on that fence line. And I think that is a valid impact that we should be perhaps paying a little bit more attention to than just delegating it to you, that you understand this. We need to pay special attention to the east.
I agree with Commissioner Berry, and I think in addition to that, I am concerned about the light spilling out from the inside, specifically things like neon lights and things like that, or pulsing lights, or whatever you have with music or anything. So I am concerned about those windows. I like the idea of having a quiet bar with nice windows so you can see in and see people in there, but I don't like the idea of a wild bar with lots of neon lights and flashing things and that sort of thing, and that being visible through the windows. So I know that you're probably thinking more of the former than the latter from everything you have said, but and the lighting that you've already that appears on the plans already is sort of old-timey lights attached to the building, which is going to be great, and the sign's going to be illuminated, not internally, but actually with lights shining on it, and that also implies a look that's more in keeping with a neighborhood pub than it is with a downtown bar. So, but all of those things sort of add together to the atmosphere of the possibilities of this as a neighborhood place, and so I know that you will be keeping that in mind as you go forward, and then the lighting is also a concern. And similarly, with windows like that, you're always tempted to put in Bud Light signs and things like that in the windows, and again, I don't think that's in keeping with the neighborhood pub idea. So again, that would be those kind of signage that are inside. They may be allowed by law, but I think they would constitute, as far as I'm concerned, something that would not be a positive condition for this bar. Also, I have one more thing, which is the circular stairs, which I love too, but what I don't want to see is a lot of people sitting out on those stairs. And so I'm going to be asking you to police those stairs and make sure that people don't hang out there, but both because it's an exit, but because also that is exactly what we don't want, a sort of external vision of people just hanging out smoking or whatever. I know they're not allowed to smoke there, but somebody's got to police that. Your door guy's got to. So that should be added to your operations plan.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Regarding the lights, just if I can chime in as the architect. So in my personal practice, I focus on Dark Skies Initiative. Everything that I do, every building that I do is always a Dark Skies building. I love the stars. I go camping every weekend that I can to disconnect from the light from the city. So it is just a personal passion of mine when it comes to lighting, to create the right balance between safety and security and also, hopefully meeting a requirement that doesn't pollute our sky even more than it already is. And then parking, we didn't really talk much about parking, so I was wondering if I could just have a moment to speak on that. We do meet the city's requirements for parking. With that said, I think we can all agree that this establishment will drive more parking than 4 or 5 stalls. This is a citywide issue. This is a nationwide issue. This is an issue that we won't solve tonight here at Planning Commission. I know that Nick has been adamant about advocating for better transportation. We have somebody here in the crowd that works on the transportation board, and I hope you can hear this. We are on a bike lane. We're next to the Kensington Trail. We're on a designated bus schedule and route right there with the bus stop within 100 feet of the building. We couldn't get any more connected to public transit unless we had a light rail line that ran down the middle of the street, which I would highly advocate for if there were ever a proposal to bring back the streetcar systems. Salt Lake City is missing a lot of nodes of public transit that force us to drive. I live in Sandy. My commute is 25 minutes by car to get here tonight. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes if I were to try to take public transit one way. So it's not an option for me unless I want to spend 4.5 hours for an hour-and-a-half long meeting. So I just want to make the comment that I think that the community needs to come together on this issue, not so for this building, but for our city, to talk about how we continue to improve our public transit options, how we continue to de-incentivize the use of the motor vehicle in our urban environment, because that is the death of our city, is the car. We all know that at this point. And so I want to encourage us to put the passion that we all put into the fight against parking for all these establishments or for parking to a larger collective effort to lobby for better public transportation in our city.
I bought a sewing machine from Mr. Dave Dalton at the Shingleton Staff Sewing Center in June of 2020. It's a delightful neighborhood. It was a great business when that business was there. It's zoned for residential business. So it's not, no one is asking us to rezone this area. One of the conditional uses, so by law, if you own that property, you can use it for a bar if you can mitigate the problems that a bar might cause. And they're by the professional analysis, by the professional planners, and the report that I've seen, it looks like that they are mitigating those things, which means they don't have to eliminate it, but they have to do their best job to try to mitigate that. And we've talked before about conditional uses. If they're not able, if in the future they're not able to mitigate the problems that use causes, then they can lose their conditional approval. So they could not be able to use that as a bar in the future. And that's a real thing that could happen. And I think that that will be on their minds. So I hope that they're good business owners. I hate to try to limit the hours that they can be allowed to be opened by us, by the Planning Commission. It seems like it's a business choice. And those kinds of things. So I think that they do, since they meet the conditions, then I'm going to be required to. I shall vote in favor of the conditional use for this property. And I don't mean to couch it like, this is pretty exciting. This is pretty great, I think. Neighborhood places to hang out are wonderful. And even if you don't drink coffee, you can go to a coffee house. Lots of people go to coffee shops and have meetings and first dates, and all kinds of stuff happen there. And the same kind of thing can happen at a bar, whether you drink alcohol or you don't. You have to be 21, obviously. But I think this is great, and I'm excited for it, and I'm glad to see that you've made the effort that you need to make to meet those conditional requirements. So I'm happy about it.
May I expand on that, Commissioner Burrows? This is a great initiative, and I'm also in favor of it. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Downtown Economic Benchmark Report that Salt Lake City published very recently here in 2023, just showing like how our downtown is being shaped for the very promising future we have. Downtown retail sales have soared back to around $2.3 billion in 2022, up to almost 12% from the previous year and 44% since 2020, which was pretty tragic. But I think, just what Commissioner Burrows said about like having a third place, we always talk about, spaces where the community can thrive, where community can work, live, and also play. I believe Aaron Mendenhall in 2021 mentioned that there was only like 43 bars operating back then. We do have, a huge need for these type of places, and I think it aligns perfectly with our 2005 master plan for this specific area. And then it does align perfectly with almost every single compliance metrics we have, as the staff mentioned. And then it also, the applicant has been kind enough to accommodate for some of the, some of the instances where we need to mitigate, air pollution and things like that, which they have compromised, and they have make some, promises to have it as a bar that is for non-smokers. I just think this is such a great initiative from an economic development standpoint, just creating, a more vitalized area so people can actually, see the potential, because this is an area that has a lot of potential. And just like the idea, not only for the potential income revenue generation, just also like they're going to employ some folks. And I think that's going to be lovely, just the idea of creating some other jobs in this area. And besides that, just the overall, economic contributions to the bar and the local community. I think that I just wanted to expand on Commissioner Burrows for that need of having spaces that people can play, and this is one of them. And I think that, again, the applicant has been very kind to accommodate for some of these potential impacts and ways to mitigate them. And I think that I align with a favor motion for this one.
Chair, may I make one quick comment? Before we have a motion on this, I think we might consider restating the condition in such a way so as to require and to delegate the responsibilities then to staff to finalize and verify that those plans will comply in all their ways with other ordinances. It may be splitting hairs, but I think the condition, I think the purpose of the condition has to require additional lighting rather than just leaving that to staff to finalize, and the landscaping.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're asking for.
So right now, the recommended condition is that final details related to lighting and landscaping near the dumpster area are delegated to staff to verify compliance with the conditional use standards and the standards for fences, walls, and hedges in 21A 40.120. And my proposal for us to think about is to add to that the condition is that there be additional lighting, landscaping, and modifications to the existing landscaping, the finalization and approval of which will be delegated to staff to verify compliance and so on.
I understand where you're coming from, but I feel pretty confident in our staff to make those streamlined determinations of what's applicable depending on this conditional use.
Yeah, I think the point is that there isn't sufficient lighting, right? That's one of the detriments of this use on this property. And so part of the condition is to require additional lighting, but as it's currently worded, it does not. It just says we delegate that final approval. And so for me, I feel like there's a responsibility to say a lighting plan, additional landscaping, and modifications to the landscaping are required before we will permit this use, and we will delegate the final decisions on what those plans are to the staff.
Commissioner Gale, would it be satisfactory to just remove the reference near the dumpster?
Yeah. No, I think that could even stay. I think my point being that as written right now, it does not require changes or additional landscaping or lighting. And I think the purpose of the condition is...
The plans are part of the proposal, and they're part of what we're approving, and they have lighting and landscaping in them.
Yeah. And if we delegate...
Right, but we're not approving the plans as drafted,
I think
and
they're
those
part
could
of
change.
they are part of the application, so they are being approved.
And if we
And
just
if they are
remove-
changed, they actually have to be.
Yeah, they have
They're
to.
changed significantly. They have to come back to us.
And if we remove the reference to near the
Thank-
dumpster, then that becomes a broader
Yeah.
landscaping and lighting throughout
broader
the
sense.
whole proposal.
Right. My
but they still have to
understanding is
do
there
it.
is additional landscaping that will be installed in a park strip. Is that correct?
It'll be a modification. To the
A
existing
modification. So I think we could say, and I'm just saying for me, the condition is not sufficient because there's not a condition that will mitigate anything. It's just saying we are turning this to staff, and as the planning commission, our responsibility in trying to mitigate detriments or negative effects of a conditional use are to require conditions. And I don't think it's a requirement of a condition, just that there are mentions of certain things in preliminary plans. So we're approving a conditional use as a bar. Part of the potential detrimental impact is that this site does not have much lighting. And so then we require the condition that they have additional lighting, but delegate the details about that to the staff. Again, it's just my thought on it.
So I've been preparing to make a motion to approve it with the conditions in the staff report. I hear where you're coming from. My concern is that saying additional lighting or additional landscaping is not very specific. So what would we be specifically looking for from the applicant? I'm open to that, but I want to be very specific in what we're asking them. I mean, if they put up one more outside light, is that additional lighting? What?
Am I wrong that the plans are part of the application, and therefore whatever is on the plan is actually going to happen unless there is some change to it?
You are correct.
Yes.
So the landscaping has to comply with whatever landscaping requirements are there. The lighting has to comply with lighting requirements. The only way that something would be different is if the commission is adding an additional requirement for one of those two things to offset a potential detrimental impact. So in the case of lighting, you could say we want lighting that is only cast down and is shielded on the sides and the tops, so it doesn't shine sideways or up.
I probably missed it. Where was the lighting plan in the report? What page is that on?
I'll find it for you.
I believe it's just shown on the elevations. We have a light fixture by each door, one in the intermediary space between the doors on Kensington Avenue, and then one that is intended to illuminate the garbage area to prevent that from being a dark hiding place for anybody. So right now it's showing what will comply with city code. It's showing enough that should illuminate the sidewalk with an even glow along the frontage of the property on both public streets, and then the little bit that would be required in the parking area or the waste refuge area as a means of preventing that from becoming a dark place to hide.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I make a motion? Go ahead. Based on the information presented in the discussion, I move that the commission approve this application with the conditions listed in the report.
I second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Bitton and a second from Commissioner Santos Rivera. Any discussion to the motion? We'll go ahead and take a vote. Commissioner Burrows.
Yes.
Commissioner Berry.
Yes.
Commissioner Tuttle.
Yes.
Commissioner Gale.
Yes.
Commissioner Shear.
Yes.
Commissioner Bitton.
Yes.
Commissioner Santos Rivera.
Yes.
And the chair will also vote yes. That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. And we'll convene at 7:05. Our next item is plan development for Bamboo multifamily housing at approximately 602 East and 612 East 300 South and 321 South, 600 East. Case number PLN PCM 2023-00124, and Sarah Javaronic. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a proposal for a planned development for the Bamboo multifamily project. The applicant is requesting planned development approval to use the density provision to change the non-conforming commercial use on the site to a residential use. And you can see it includes 3 properties. There's the property at 602 East, 300 South, and 321 East, 321 South, 600 East, I'm sorry. And so these will be the location of the proposed multifamily building. The single-family home at 612 East, 300 South will be maintained, and then the residence to the rear of that, which is addressed as 614, will be remodeled and include the 1-bedroom unit. And staff is recommending approval with conditions. An overview of the project: the property is within the RMF 35 zoning district. It's within the Central Community Plan. It's also within the Central City Historic District. And I'll talk about this a little bit more, but the Historic Landmark Commission approved the new construction for the proposal. The property is about 1/2 acre, and the proposal is for 38 micro units in the multifamily building, as well as the separate 1-bedroom unit, and then retaining that existing single-family home. The materials on the site are, for the new construction, are face brick and fiber cement board. And for parking, there are 9 off-street spaces, including 1 accessible space, 3 on-street spaces. The proposal was submitted during that 6-month period between the adoption of the new parking chapter and the old parking chapters. They are using the old parking chapter standards. And then there are also 26 secure bicycle parking spaces. As far as standards of review, there's the RMF 35 zoning district standards in 21A24, as well as the 21A55 plan development standards, and then the historic preservation standards in 21A34020. As far as background, as I mentioned previously, the Historic Landmark Commission approved the new construction application and also the requested modifications for the proposal. This included the new construction for the multifamily dwelling, the remodeling of the non-contributing dwelling to the rear, and then modifications to the front yard setback, and then for the canopies to extend into the front yard setback, which was a recommendation by staff. Also want to note that the non-contributing status of the existing building at 602 East, 300 South was reviewed with administrative interpretation, and that was included in your packet. And additionally, demolition applications for non-contributing properties are reviewed administratively, and those have been approved. The building at 612 East, 300 South, the single-family home, is considered contributing to the Central City Historic District, and then any changes to that property will be reviewed with a minor alterations application. Here is an existing survey of the site that shows the buildings as well as the adjacent properties. On the site plan, you can see the site demolition plan on the left, as well as the proposed site plan on the right. And so you can see the 2 non-contributing structures that would be demolished, the new multifamily dwelling on the right side of the slide, as well as the changes to those existing structures on the site. The proposed units are micro units and are approximately 400 square feet. You can see these on the ground level floor plan, as well as the structure to the rear at 614 East with the 1-bedroom unit and then the bicycle parking. As I mentioned earlier, the primary material on the exterior is face brick, and there's fiber cement board generally adjacent to the windows and the doors. The building has a precast concrete cornice, and then it has a precast concrete sill at each level, and then there are balconies provided for each unit, including those on the secondary facades. And so on the top slide there is what they're considering the front facade on 600 East, and then on the bottom is the rear. And then on the top slide here, the north elevation on 300 South has the same materials and a similar layout for the units. And then on the bottom is the south elevation, which is the interior side yard. And then this slide shows you the rear building, where there is the 2-story unit that has the 1-bedroom unit, and then The section with the black metal panels is the bicycle parking. And so the requested modifications for this plan development are to use that density provision that is available for properties in the RMF zoning district. And so that density provision allows for a change from a non-conforming commercial use to a permitted residential use. And so this is a permitted residential use with a multifamily development. And so staff is recommending approval with conditions. And then just going a little bit further into that density provision, the proposal is for the 38 multifamily units, the one-bedroom unit, and the single-family home, and using those multifamily qualifying provisions in the RMF 35 zoning district. The 3 parcels total approximately 21,200 square feet, which would allow for 9 multifamily units. As far as compliance with adopted plans, the proposal is consistent with sections of Plan Salt Lake, the Central Community Plan, and Housing SLC. It is to provide for infill development in the area with existing services, will allow for an increase of density in existing neighborhoods, as well as in an area near transit. It's located very close to a light rail line and near bus lines. It is removing a non-conforming land use, and it meets the overall Housing SLC metric to entitle additional housing units. As far as public process, early notification was mailed to property owners within 300 feet. There was an online open house. It was discussed at the East Central and Central City Community Councils. Staff has received some public comment that was included with the staff report. The Historic Landmark Commission held a work session in September of this year and then held a public hearing in November. And so staff is recommending approval with the conditions as in the staff report and in the motion sheet. The applicant is here and has a presentation, but are there questions for staff at this point?
Thank you. Let's go ahead and have the applicant come forward. And go ahead and state your names for the record.
Hello, my name is Tom Jacob, an architect, Salt Lake, and I'm here with
Anna Vaughn.
Anna is part of VY Architecture, and we have teamed up on this project, and it's first of a kind for us, and we're very excited to present it to you because we feel like it accomplishes many goals that the city is really asking for in terms of multifamily housing. We are presenting a high-performing, dense, and high-quality building within the downtown district that's within a quarter mile of the track station. It's the ideal location for this small micro unit development. If any place in the city, this is where it belongs. So, you know, through much process, we've worked with Sarah for the past almost 2 years now, looking at various operations through the Historic Landmarks Commission and all their guidelines. And this design is a direct result of the guidelines themselves, the master plan of the city, and our analysis of the neighborhood. This neighborhood has a pattern of 3 to 4 story. Let me go to this next sheet. This is kind of our analysis sheet. 3 to 4 story apartment buildings that historically populated this whole area, and through years they were demolished and lost. And the master plan itself encourages this particular type of development, and it's something that actually was pre-existing prior to the 1950s. So with recent changes in the zoning and the master plan, the city wants this, is the basic kind of conclusion. So Sarah did a very thorough job. I'm going to try not to reiterate what she said, because the site plan is really a critical component of the whole project. You can kind of really see the density that we are proposing and what it presents to the neighborhood, but through the use of setback and building massing and the breaking down of the building mass, we feel, especially in terms of the historic guidelines, that it was really well received at the Landmarks Commission. So again, here's the floor plans. They are kind of just single micro units. We have the potential to expand them to one, to combine 2 units or not, but this is the preference of the owner. So this is the approach that kind of, we generated from them. Again, Sarah was very thorough about the elevations, and our most important facade, which is the lower elevation, the west elevation, it's going to front 600 east, which is more of a commercial kind of edge. We're really kind of truly in this transition zone between this kind of commercial and residential as we turn the corner. So this is, really a good example of, how the larger mass of the building fronts 600 east, and the smaller mass, which is the north elevation, fronts 300 south. It's a few drawings, and then we did, multiple perspectives. Again, this on the right-hand side, there's a view of it on 300 south, and the left is kind of looking at it in terms of the building massing along 600 east on the left. There's also introduction of the stoop, which is a good kind of transition between public and private, and also this landscape courtyard that you can see in the original rendering.
I don't know that I have that much to add. I think the idea here is that you're providing.
Get you a little bit closer to the microphone.
I'm a quiet talker too. Touch it. So basically, I think the idea is really that we're working on a building that is made with high quality materials, that's located in a location where we don't have a ton of parking, but there's an immense amount of access to public transit, and there's a bike lane on the east, south, pardon me. And we're trying to use, break down the scale of the building using spatial architectural mechanisms by really pushing in those facades and creating depth. We create multiple layers that can be experienced by the person on the street and the person in there. So there's privacy and there's a bit of density, but it feels appropriately scaled for that neighborhood.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
I do. I have a question for staff. So Sarah, I have a couple of questions for you, and I'll wait till she gets. So Sarah, I would like you to educate me on my limited understanding, I guess, of what qualifies for a plan development, because they've always been presented to us as multiple buildings that don't have street frontage, and I'm wondering, why is this being considered a plan development?
Sure. So there's the density provision that is in the...
Yeah, that's my next part of my question.
Okay.
I guess so this is not necessarily related to the merit of your project, but I want to understand these provisions. So this is the first time that we've come up before me that an exemption for the density limitation for so we're talking about replacing a building, not necessarily replacing a use of a non-conforming commercial.
Correct.
So the incentive is to completely replace the building?
So the incentive could be used to modify an existing building, which has also been done, or the incentive, or it's not necessarily an incentive, it's a provision, could be used to construct a new building as well.
How old is that provision? It's never come up before in my 5 years.
It was part of the plan development chapter that was adopted in 2018.
Oh, so right when I started, which I have no memory of whatsoever. But so why is then this considered a plan development? Just because of the density limitation exemption?
Correct.
I guess
Yeah,
I'm
so that's an
confused.
option that the plan development chapter adds, is that if you're replacing a non-conforming commercial use in a residential zone, in the RMF zone, meaning those commercial uses aren't allowed, the idea was that there would be some incentive to do so. And the code allows us to essentially waive the density requirement through the plan development process.
So through that is what was creating it as a plan development.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I'm ready to make a motion.
We need, we're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this item? Okay, go ahead and approach the microphone. State your name for the record, and you'll have 2 minutes.
My name is Robert Englert. I work in a business at 323 South, 600 East, which would be the south property line of this project. And my question is, I'm just wondering how close to that building will their black landscaping fence be at completion? Does that make sense what I'm asking? Because right now we have a driveway between the Steiner building and the 323 building. And I'm just wondering, will that driveway be landscaped, and then how close will the landscape fence be to the 323 South building?
We'll have the applicant take note of that and answer the question when we close the public hearing. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to give public comment? Seeing no one, and have we received any emails on it? Let's go ahead and close the public hearing and come back to the commission, and let's go ahead and have the applicant answer that question.
Well, as far as I know, what the zoning requires, when you abut a commercial property, there's no landscape requirements. Sarah, is that correct?
Correct.
So I believe the owners of the property met with you, and our main concern was stopping traffic circulation into their parking lot. So that's why we're installing a 6-foot fence along there to prohibit any kind of movement from your property to this property. But there actually isn't really much room for planting there. I mean, we could possibly consider it, but it wasn't required by the ordinance, so we didn't address it. Yeah, that drive essentially stays the same. Yeah. Correct.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure we're looping around. Could you please speak in the microphone and identify yourself, and so we can have that on
We've
record?
closed the public hearing already.
I cannot hear anything that this person is saying right now.
Yeah, well, we've already closed the public hearing, so they've already had an opportunity to ask the question, and the applicant has already answered it as best as he can.
So, and I think we can just say, so the fence is actually on the property line, and the driveway is approximately where the driveway was previously, and the new building is where it's proposed is basically in the same location as the previous building where the wall is. There's just a fence along the whole property line to prevent circulation from crossing the property line.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Based on the information presented in discussion, I move that the commission approve this application based on staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Bitton and a second from Commissioner Gale. Any discussion to the motion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding what was happening there. But yeah, I do have a discussion for the motion. I'm usually very skeptical for like micro units. It is, however, in a very interesting location. We need housing, period. It is in an agglomeration economy where there's financial districts and so many things happening there. And I think that one of the things that we've been learning recently, and due to current demographic trends, and according to very recent housing attainability conference that we participated in, there is just a shrinking household size here in the state of Utah. So I think that this kind of like aligns with some of the demographics and needs in this specific area. And I just wanted to add that as part of the discussion for this motion in favor for this proposal.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and take a vote then. Commissioner Gale,
Yes.
Commissioner Barry,
Yes.
Commissioner Shear,
Yes.
Commissioner Santos Rivera,
Yes.
Commissioner Bitten,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrows,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuttle,
Yes.
and the chair will also vote yes. That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and move on to our next item. Zoning map amendments at approximately 756 South Montgomery Street, case number PLN PCM 2023-00607. And our staff member is Michael McNamee. Hello.
Okay, good evening. This is a proposed rezone of a city-owned piece of property at 756 South Montgomery Street, close to the intersection of Indiana Avenue and Redwood Road in the Poplar Grove neighborhood. The mayor has initiated this request to rezone the property from R1 5000 single-family residential district to RMF 30 low-density multifamily residential, and staff has found that the rezone is generally supported by the applicable neighborhood plan, so a master plan amendment was not necessary. The subject property is just over half an acre in size, or 22,000 square feet. It is currently vacant, and based on the available records, it appears there has never been development there. The city acquired the property in 2014, and it is in the portfolio of the Housing Stability Division. Housing Stability's long-term goal for the property is to develop affordable housing, although exact plans have not been presented yet. The neighborhood surrounding the subject property is primarily characterized by single-family homes, and the zoning in the immediate area is generally R1 5000. There is a non-conforming commercial plant nursery across the street to the east, and to the north is a mobile home park that is zoned MH, or Mobile Home Park District. The property is situated at the north end of Montgomery Street, where it dead ends into the perimeter wall of the mobile home park. Because of this, the site is a good candidate for transitional zoning because it is on the edge of the established building pattern of single-family homes where it meets with the mobile home park and nursery. RMF 30 is intended to be a transitional zone from lower density residential districts. To that end, it allows for a greater intensity of development than the current R1 5000 zoning, but maintains similar development standards. For example, the maximum building height in RMF 30 is 30 feet, compared to 28 feet in R1 5000 for a building with a pitched roof or 20 feet with a flat roof. Setback requirements are the same or similar between the two districts. Building coverage can be slightly higher in RMF 30, 50% compared to 40%. The main difference is in the number of units that would be achievable under the RMF 30 zone compared to R1 5000. Under the current zoning, given the dimensions of the lot, it could be split into two with a single family dwelling on each lot. And that's because R1 5000 has a minimum lot width of 50 feet, and this lot has about 120 feet of width. However, there is enough lot area to subdivide the lot into four, but that would require plan development approval to modify the lot width requirements, which is not a given because plan developments have to meet certain standards. But theoretically, you could build up to four under the current zoning. In contrast, under RMF 30, 8 units could be possible with a multifamily or cottage-style development, or if townhomes were developed instead, 6 units would be the maximum possible. An additional difference for development under RMF 30 is that design standards would be required for things like durable building materials, amount of glass, length of blank walls, and entry features. The proposal is generally supported by the applicable planning documents. Consistent with goals and initiatives in Plan Salt Lake, it would promote infill and redevelopment of underutilized land, accommodate and promote an increase in the city's population, and increase the number of medium-density housing types and options. The West Side Plan mentions this property specifically as an opportunity for infill development. The site is also close to a community node centered on Redwood Road and Indiana Avenue, which the plan says should have residential densities of 20 to 30 units per acre to support them. A density of up to 14 acres per lot or per acre on this lot would be possible under RMF 30. Housing SLC, the city's 5-year housing plan, lists a goal to entitle 10,000 new housing units throughout the city, with 4,000 of those being affordable to households making 80% of the area median income or lower. And since this property is in the portfolio of housing stability, a redevelopment would likely contribute to completing the goal of building affordable housing. 45-day public notice period was conducted for this project, and staff received one email from the public, which was included in the staff report. And there was an additional email received shortly before the hearing that was shared with the commission. The Poplar Grove Community Council did not comment on the proposal. One thing I do want to note about the comments, they both mentioned either parking or traffic as a concern. I did bring that up with transportation, and their comment was that the existing infrastructure was enough to support the increase in population. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council regarding this rezone. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Let's go ahead and open up the public hearing. We did receive one card from Julio Raimundo, and I don't see him in the audience. He did check the box that he wishes to speak in opposition, so I will read what is on his card. I had emailed the city but had no answer. My concerns are not received or are not needed. Thanks for nothing. Did we receive any emails from Julio?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Well, his comments are now on the record. I don't see anyone else in the audience, and I'm assuming we haven't received any other emails. So let's go ahead and close the public hearing and come back to the commission.
I'm ready for a motion.
Can I ask a question to staff really quickly? So typically we're looking at these changes in the context of having plans, and I'm supportive of this. I'm excited to see this level of density coming to the neighborhood, and I know there's other petitions in the neighborhood. Where we're looking at this without the context for plans, can you kind of talk through, once this is granted, what the process looks like for the city? This is my first time seeing a city-owned property as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. The intent is that once these properties are rezoned is to put them out for some sort of RFP process, to have people propose housing with certain city goals attached to those. We don't know what those are yet. They'll be partly established, I think, as the council discusses this and considers it. But that's the intent for this. There's 2 other rezones that will be coming in the next couple of months in this neighborhood that do substantially the same thing of city-owned property, and so that would be the same type of process.
Great, thank you.
Add to that, Commissioner Bitton, it's been my experience in city-owned properties where they're pursuing some type of a development, aka housing. They will work with interested community members, especially the community council, to address specific parts in the RFP. So you can be part of that discussion and what the RFP would look like. So they're pretty robust in their community involvement early on before that ever goes out.
Thank you.
All right. Ready for a motion, Chair. Based on the information presented and discussion, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to adopt this zoning map amendment to City Council.
I second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Santos Rivera and a second from Commissioner Scheer. Any discussion to the motion? We'll go ahead and take a vote. Commissioner Santos Rivera.
Yes.
Commissioner Bitton.
Yes.
Commissioner Scheer.
Yes.
Commissioner Burrows.
Yes.
Commissioner Barry.
Yes.
Commissioner Tuttle.
Yes.
Commissioner Gale.
Yes.
And the chair will also vote yes. That motion passes unanimously. And we have exhausted our agenda. I just want to thank Commissioner Bitton for his service and also remind everyone that during the next meeting we will be selecting a new vice chair. So keep that in mind.